It's more of a building science issue. And Adam, if you're watching, this is why you hired a home inspector for this job.
Buckle up for safety as I give you a day in the life of facilities maintenance.
Everybody's got a different system of reporting. I've got my general list of tasks that I need to do. It's fairly long until summer comes around and then things get busier. This is my reporting of the job that I'm currently working on in this video. It basically allows me to generate a report. Now, I come from a policing and home inspection background, and so reporting my findings is how I remember what I've done. I'm an expert on something at the time that I'm doing it, and then when I move on to something else, I need to revisit what I've done in the form of notes that I've made to basically open up that file cabinet drawer again and go, okay, there's that information.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
So in this case, what I like about this is that I'm able to include other people in the conversation, one of them being our operations director. I like to keep him apprised of what is going on with my world. Also, I've included the vice principal of the school, because it's good to have somebody on administration in the school knowing what it is that's going on in their school in terms of, non-instructional type stuff. This was last night. I just made this entry, and to give you my conclusions in a summary, I'll read you what I entered.
It was a warm day and a cool evening with clear skies, so I came in last night at 2:30 a.m. to do a thermal scan in the hopes that this would give me a few more clues. Unfortunately, my results were less than I had hoped for. I was hoping to find a trail of breadcrumbs that would lead me to the penetration source, but found nothing conclusive. I have some theories. The rock ballast, which holds heat and essentially masks any warm areas beneath the membrane, was a variable that was skewing my results. Another variable may be the type of insulation under the membrane. If it's a polystyrene type insulation that doesn't absorb water, the difference in mass between dry insulation and wet is negligible, and as such, there is little or no temperature differential to get a reading from. And yet another variable is the dew point. This is one that I didn't consider prior to getting up on the roof and going, man, it's wet up here. Even though I went home at 6 p.m. and the roof was dry, at 2:30 a.m. it was soaking wet with dew, and the evaporation of the surface moisture can mess things up as well. In the same way that our body cools, right? When we're exercising or we perspire, that perspiration on the surface of our skin evaporates and cools our skin down. That helps us regulate our body temperature. Anyway, it was soaking wet with dew, and the evaporation of the surface moisture can mess things up as well. While the ambient temperature was 8 degrees, the surface of the rubber membrane was 4 to 6 degrees cooler, which goes to show you how effective evaporation is for cooling. It's not a total write-off, though. I know more now than I did yesterday, and I will just keep looking until I hopefully find the problem.
Good morning. It's Thursday morning. Last time I was up here on the roof was Tuesday morning between 2 and 3 a.m. And I'm looking at the marks that I painted on the roof early Tuesday morning. And now that I can see all of it, it's absolutely clear that the lines that I have, why don't I show you? These lines here, those there, that there, running across here, this there. What those lines are showing me where my insulation panels are in the roof. It did look like something was going on in this patch right here. This rock is where I've measured out and landmarked where my leak is below. Definitely something going on here. Well, I did learn something with my experience with the infrared camera up here. I didn't draw any conclusive information to go, aha, here is our problem. So, next steps. I want to determine still which direction the water is coming from to reach this point where it's leaking down. And I think at this stage, the only thing I can do, or probably, maybe not the only thing, but the next thing I need to do is to open up the roof, peel back the layers, and take a look at the roof decking itself, or see if I can see a water trail heading off in this direction, or a water trail heading up in that direction, so I can know where or which direction my water leak is coming from. because like I said previously, I'm standing on all this exposed roof rubber membrane here, and there are no holes in it. So even though the water is dripping through here, it's coming from somewhere else, and we need to figure out where that is.
Well, we're definitely looking at a styrofoam insulation under there. Have our cut started, but it hasn't quite gone all the way through. The reason I'm being particular about cutting this in straight lines and perpendicular lines is it just makes it easier to patch afterwards when I put it back together. All right, the moment of truth. Let's see what we've got going on underneath there. Okay, that didn't take long. If you look at the vapor barrier, you can see a little bit of wrinkling throughout all of it because this has all been damp underneath here. However, if you look right along this channel here, this has been much damper over a longer period of time, and if you open it up, you can actually see rust in the channel here. So this is good news, because what this is telling me is that water has been traveling exclusively along that channel. That's been our way in, which means that it's coming from there somewhere along where I've already exposed the membrane. Perhaps I just haven't gone far enough, because I'll sweep the dust off the membrane and take a closer look at it, but I know that that drain is good and the membrane looks good as far as I've exposed it, and so I might have to go back as far as that RTU right against the edge of the roof there, which is about another 30-40 feet. And by all accounts, what I'm seeing down here is it's coming in along this channel somewhere. Now, even though I know that we have water coming in along this channel, that doesn't mean that we don't have water coming in somewhere else. So I will do a little bit more exploratory. I'm going to remove that piece of insulation panel too, because I just want to make sure that I also don't have water coming from there or from there, because that's entirely possible. It might not just be from that location out there.
The other thing worth noting that I noticed right away as soon as I took the insulation off was that the vapor barrier itself, it's not integrous. It doesn't make a consistent barrier. There's gaps all over the place. And if the seams aren't sealed, the vapor barrier can't really do the job it was designed to do in the first place. Water vapor from below can migrate up through the top.
Okay, I am satisfied that no water has been coming from the east. No water has been coming from the west. Remember when we were down below earlier and I mentioned how the roof decking went this direction, and then it also went this direction, east, west, north, south, and that the water was coming through at the points of convergence based on what we were seeing below. It was. You can see this is where it was entering the school, and definitely this channel is showing signs of water, rust, None of the others are. So definitely our water has been coming in along this channel from somewhere over there. So now that I know a direction to search in, the search continues. The Searcher. Any of you remember that series from, oh man, had to be like the early 90s. The Searcher. Diedrich somebody, I think, was the actor that played that part.
And stay tuned for yet another example of how I have a head full of useless information.
Someone needs help, so they call me. That's what I do. I help people in trouble. They call me the Searcher.
The Searcher. Why do I remember these things? I'll let it dry for a couple hours and then put it back together and then head off in search of where the water source is coming from. I've laid that stick down as a signpost, a guide marker, to show me exactly where that channel is. If I look at this, that stick is aimed directly at where the gas line from that RTU is entering the roof. I may head off to the far end by the RTU and work my way back. Well, I think I've figured it out. It's not what I thought it would be. It's probably not what you'd expect. It wasn't what I expected. But let me show you what I think it is. Well, first I'll show you what it isn't. Okay, first of all, we know, based on this rust right here and the water tracking along this channel and only this channel, that the water is coming from that direction. So you would think, well, then this track lines up with the point of entry of the gas line within about 2 inches at the far end. I'm looking along this line going, okay, so the water must be entering through a breach in the membrane somewhere along this line. So let's take a look at the membrane. Starting here where our rust track is, we will just follow this membrane. And you can pause the video at sections if you wish to examine it closer as I'm walking along here. I know I'm going a little quickly, but I want to get to what I actually think the problem is. So here at these penetration points, our pitch pocket is fine, our boot is fine. We've actually got no indications of any water penetration right here. To be on the safe side, I will reseal this drain, but I don't think that's what it is. It's more of a building science issue. Standing back here, looking to the north, if you look here, you can see a faint line there and a faint line there. Let me show you what's going on there. Not so much on this one, a little bit, but this one right here, let me get the shadow out of the picture here. Can you see that deflection? So you want to know what's going on here? I'm going to move away from that AC that just kicked on because I want you to hear this. So did you know that in a residential household with, say, a family of 4, If you have a hole in your vapor barrier, the size of your fingernail, will allow a quart of water per day through that very little tiny hole. It's unbelievable, actually. Laws of thermodynamics, warm air will always move to cold. It's also a physical law, that warm air has the potential to carry more humidity than cool air, right? That's why in the wintertime, your house is warm, your windows are cold, and you get condensation built up around the window frame. Especially 50 years ago with single pane metal framed windows, they used to get a lot of condensation, but that's because the warm humid air is hitting the cold surface and it condenses. So how does that apply to here? Well, what's going on down in that little gap right there is there's no insulation there. There's at least a 4-inch wide by 3 or 4 foot long spot where no insulation was put in there. I don't know if the piece is broken under there. We're going to find out because I need to open it up. Because what is happening is actually fascinating from a building science point of view. You have got 1,000 mouth breathers at any given time under my feet here, right? You've got a whole school full of people breathing. The air is warm. The relative humidity of that air is high. Warm air rises. Warm air also condenses when it hits a cold surface. What happens every night when the temperature drops and the dew falls?
Right down.
Yeah, cool.
Remember with my thermography when I was looking at the roof how the surface of the wet roof was 6 degrees colder than the ambient temperature out here? So that's 6 degrees colder than outside. That's probably 15 degrees colder than inside. So that warm, humid air hits a cold surface and it condenses. Now just think, if a quart of water can pass through a small hole the size of your fingernail in a 24-hour period, just think how much water is going to be drawn out of an area that's 4 or 5 inches wide by 3 feet long. That's a cold surface. At nighttime, when the temperature drops and the dew falls, that area the roof surface cools right down. So the leak shows up when it's raining. What is that doing to the roof? It's cooling the roof down. Heat rises. Warm will always go to cold. It hits the surface of the roof down here at this point here, and especially when rocks are loaded on here, this is going to be, it's going to be a depression, right? So I don't know if you've ever seen that diagram. Anyone who was a Boy Scout will know that if you are outside and you don't have any water source, that you can dig a hole in the ground, you can put a piece of plastic over top of that hole, stick a cup down in the very bottom, drop a pebble in the center of that plastic, creating an inverse pyramid shape, and the water from the moisture in the earth will rise up. It will hit the cool surface of that plastic, will run down to that point and drip down into the cup, and in a very short time you'll have a cup of water that you can drink that came out of the earth. I think the same thing is happening here. This spot right here crosses right over our channel in the metal, and there are no holes in the membrane all the way along here. Water is not coming from the outside, which means it has to be coming from the inside. And I think what is happening is that warm, humid air is condensing on the underside of this depression right here, where there's no insulation, and dropping straight into that channel and traveling all the way down where it meets a breach in that channel and drips down below. And if that's what's happening, that would explain why nobody's ever been able to actually find the roof leak. because there actually isn't a problem with the roof itself. It's the roof system, and there's a break in the insulation, and that is the cause of the problem. I'll find out when I open it up. This is all theory right now. When I open this up, I will be able to see whether or not there is rust in the channel below the gap right here. And if there is, that'll prove my theory. And then to repair it, I simply insulate it. Thanks for watching. See you next episode. I'm gonna leave you hanging.